Chapter 28. Rain in Chicago drums through the night on the canopy over the open grave of Freddie Lowndes. Thunder jars Will Graham's pounding head as he weaves from the table to a bed where dreams coil beneath the pillow. The old house above St. Charles, shouldering the wind, repeats its long sigh over the hiss of rain against the windows and the bump of thunder. The stairs are creaking in the dark. Mr. Dollarhide is coming down them, his kimono whispering over the treads, his eyes wide with recent sleep. His hair is wet and neatly combed. He has brushed his nails. He moves slowly and smoothly, carrying his concentration like a brimming cup. Film beside his projector, 2 subjects. Other reels are piled in the wastebucket for burning. 2 left, chosen from the dozens of home movies he has copied at the plant and brought home to audition. Comfortable in his reclining chair, with a tray of cheese and fruit beside him, Dollarhide settles in to watch. The first film is a picnic from the 4th of July weekend. A handsome family. 3 children, the father bull-necked, dripping into the pickle jar with his thick fingers, and the mother. The best view of her is in the softball game with the neighbor's children. Only about 15 seconds of her. She takes a lead off second base, faces the pitcher and the plate. Feet apart, ready to dash either way, her breasts swaying beneath her pullover as she leans forward from the waist. An annoying interruption as a child swings a bat. The woman again, walking back to tag up. She puts one foot on the boat cushion they use for a base and stands hip shot, the thigh muscle tightening in her locked leg. Over and over, Dollarhide watches the frames of the woman. Foot on the base, pelvis tilts, thigh muscle tightens under the cut-off jeans. He freezes the last frame, the woman and her children. They are dirty and tired. They hug, and a dog wags among their legs. A terrific crash of thunder clinks the cut crystal in grandmother's tall cabinet. Dollarhide reaches for a pear. The second film is in several segments. The title, The New House, is spelled out in pennies on a shirt cardboard about a broken piggy bank. It opens with father pulling up the for sale sign in the yard. He holds it up and faces the camera with an embarrassed grin. His pockets are turned out. An unsteady long shot of mother and 3 children on front steps. It is a handsome house, a cut to the swimming pool. A child, sleek-headed and small, pads around to the diving board, leaving wet footprints on the tile. Heads bop in the water. A small dog paddles toward a daughter, his ears back, chin high, and the whites of his teeth showing. Mother, in the water, holds to the ladder and looks up at the camera. Her curly black hair has the gloss of pelt, her bosom swelling, shining wet above her suit, her legs wavy below the surface, scissoring. Night. a badly exposed shot across the pool to the lighted house, the lights reflected in the water. Indoors and family fun, boxes everywhere, packing materials, an old trunk, not yet stored in the attic. A small daughter is trying on grandmother's clothes. She has on a big garden party hat. Father is on the sofa. He looks a little drunk. Now father must have the camera. It is not quite level. Mother is at the mirror in the hat. The children jostle around her, the boys laughing and plucking at the old finery. The girl watches her mother coolly, appraising herself in time to come. A close-up. Mother turns and strikes a pose for the camera with an arch smile, her hand at the back of her neck. She is quite lovely. There is a cameo at her throat. �々𝘰𝘓 freezes the frame. He backs up the film. Again and again, she turns from the mirror and smiles. Absently, 𝘰𝘓 picks up the film of the softball game and drops it in the wastebasket. He takes the reel from the projector and looks at the gateway label on the box. Bob Sherman, star Route 7, Box 603, Tulsa, Oklahoma. An easy drive, too. 𝘰𝘓 holds the film in his palm and covers it with his other hand as though it were a living thing that might struggle to escape. It seems to jump against his palm like a cricket. He remembers the jerkiness, the haste at the Leeds house when the lights came on. He had to deal with Mr. Leeds before turning on his movie lights. This time, he wants a smoother progression. It would be wonderful to crawl in between the sleepers with the camera going and snuggle up a little while. Then he could strike in the dark and sit up between them happily, getting wet. He can do that with infrared film, and he knows where to get some. The projector's still on. 𝘰𝘓 sits, holding the film between his hands, while on the bright blank screen, other images move for him to the long sigh of the wind. There is no sense of vengeance in him, only love and thoughts of the glory to come, hearts becoming faint and fast, like footsteps fleeing into silence. Him rampant, filled with love, the Shermans opening to him. The past does not occur to him at all, only the glory to come. He does not think of his mother's house. In fact, his conscious memories of that time are remarkably few and indistant. Sometime in his 20s, 𝘰𝘓's memories of his mother's house rank out of sight, leaving a sleek on the surface of his mind. He knew that he had lived there only a month. He did not recall that he was sent away at the age of 9 for hanging Victoria's cat. One of the few images he retained was the house itself, lighted, viewed from the street in winter twilight as he passed it going from Potter Gerald Elementary School to the house where he was boarded a mile away. He could remember the smell of the Vogue Library, like a piano just opened, when his mother received him there to give him holiday things. He did not remember the faces at the upstairs windows as he walked away, down the frozen sidewalk, the practical gifts burning hateful under his arm, hurrying home to a place inside his head that was quite different from St. Louis. At the age of 11, His fantasy life was active and intense, and when the pressure of his love grew too great, he relieved it. He preyed on animals, carefully, with a cool eye to consequence. They were so tame that it was so easy. The authorities never linked him with the sad little bloodstains soaked into the dirt floors of garages. At 42, he did not remember that. Nor did he ever think about the people in his mother's house. His mother, stepsisters, or stepbrother. Sometimes he saw them in his sleep, in the brilliant fragments of a fever dream, altered and tall, faces and bodies in bright parrot colors. They poised over him in a mantis stance. When he chose to reflect, which was seldom, he had many satisfactory memories. They were of his military service. Caught at 17 entering the window of a woman's house for a purpose never established, he was given the choice of enlisting in the army or facing criminal charges. He took the army. After basic training, he was sent to specialist school in darkroom operation and shipped to San Antonio, where he worked on medical corps training films at Brooke Army Hospital. Surgeons at Brooke took an interest in him and decided to improve his face. They performed a Z-plasty on his nose, using ear cartilage to lengthen the 𝘠𝘠𝘠𝘵, and repaired his lip with an interesting Abbey flap procedure that drew an audience of doctors to the operating theater. The surgeons were proud of the result. Dolarhyde declined the mirror and looked out the window. Records at the film library show Dolarhyde checked out many films, mainly on trauma, and kept them overnight. He re-enlisted in 1985, and in his second hitch, he found Hong Kong. Stationed at Seoul, Korea, developing film from the tiny spotter planes, the Army floated over the 38th parallel in the late 1950s. He was able to go to Hong Kong twice on leave. Hong Kong and Kowloon could satisfy any appetite in 1959. Grandmother was released from the sanitarium in 1961 in a vague Thorazine peace. Dolarhyde asked for and received a hardship discharge 2 months before his scheduled separation date and went home to take care of her. It was a curiously peaceful time for him as well. With his new job at Gateway, Dolarhyde could hire a woman to stay with grandmother in the daytime. At night, they sat in the parlor together, not speaking. The tick of the old clock and its chimes were all that broke the silence. He saw his mother once, at grandmother's funeral in 1970. He looked through her, past her, with his yellow eyes so startlingly like her own. She might have been a stranger. His appearance surprised his mother. He was deep-chested and sleek, with her fine coloring and a neat mustache, which she suspected was hair transplanted from his head. She called him once in the next week and heard the receiver slowly replaced. For 9 years after grandmother's death, Dolarhyde was untroubled, and he troubled no one. His forehead was as smooth as seed. He knew that he was waiting. For what? He didn't know. One small event, which occurs to everyone, told the seed in his skull it was time. Standing by a north window, examining some film, he noticed aging in his hands. It was as though his hands, holding the film, had suddenly appeared before him, and he saw, in that good north light, that the skin had sleekened over the bones and tendons, and his hands were creased in diamonds as small as lizard scales. As he turned them in the light, an intense odor of cabbage and stewed tomatoes washed over him. He shivered, though the room was warm. That evening, he worked out harder than usual. A full-length mirror was mounted on the wall of 𝘠𝘗𝘰𝘠𝘸𝘕's attic gym beside his barbells and weight bench. It was the only mirror hanging in his house, and he could admire his body in it comfortably because he always worked out in a mask. He examined himself carefully while his muscles were pumped up. At 40, he could have competed successfully in regional bodybuilding competition. He was not satisfied. Within the week, he came upon the Blake painting. It seized him instantly. He saw it in a large, full-color photograph in Time magazine, illustrating a report on the Blake retrospective at the Tate Museum in London. The Brooklyn Museum had sent the Great Dragon and the Woman Clothed with the Sun to London for the show. Times critics said, "Philodaimonic images in Western art radiate such a nightmarish charge of sexual energy." 𝘠𝘗𝘰𝘠𝘸𝘕 didn't have to read the text to find that out. He carried the picture with him for days, photographed and enlarged in the dark room late at night. He was agitated much of the time. He posted the painting beside his mirror in the weight room and stared at it while he pumped. He could sleep only when he had worked out to exhaustion and watched his medical films to aid him in sexual relief. He had known since the age of 9 that essentially he was alone and that he would always be alone, a conclusion more common to the 40s. Now, in his 40s, he was seized by a fantasy life with the brilliance and freshness and immediacy of childhood. It took him a step beyond alone. At a time when other men first see and fear their isolation, 𝘠𝘗𝘰𝘠𝘕 became understandable to him. He was alone because he was unique. With a fervor of conversation, he saw that if he worked at it, if he followed the true urges he had kept down for so long, cultivated them as the inspirations they were, he could become. The dragon's face is not visible in the painting, but increasingly 𝘠𝘗𝘰𝘠𝘕 came to know how it looked. Watching his medical films in the parlor, pumped up from lifting, he stretched his jaw wide to hold in grandmother's teeth. They did not fit his distorted gums, and his jaw cramped quickly. He worked on his jaw in private moments, biting on a hard rubber block until the muscles stood out in his cheeks like walnuts. In the fall of 1979, Francis 𝘠𝘗𝘰𝘠𝘕 withdrew part of his considerable savings and took a 3-month leave of absence from Gateway. He went to Hong Kong, and he took with him his grandmother's teeth. When he returned, red-haired Elaine and his other fellow workers agreed that the vacation had done him good. He was calm. They hardly noticed that he never used the employees' locker room or shower anymore. He had never done that often anyway. His grandmother's teeth were back in the glass beside her bed. His own new ones were locked in his desk upstairs. If Elaine could have seen him before his mirror, teeth in place, new brilliant tattoo in the harsh gym light, she would have screamed once. There was time now. He did not have to hurry now. He had forever. It was 5 months before he selected the Jacobies. The Jacobies were the first to help him, the first to lift him into the glory of his becoming. The Jacobies were better than anything he ever knew, until the Leeds. And now, as he grew in strength and glory, there were the Shermans to come in the new intimacy of infrared, most promising.